You don't lose power in arguments. You lose it in the moments you answer too quickly. Not when you're attacked. Not when someone raises their voice. Not when the conflict is obvious. You lose it in conversations that feel harmless, casual, friendly, the kind where nothing seems at stake, because that's where your guard drops. That's where you stop thinking and start reacting. And in that reaction, you give away more than you realize. Machiavelli didn't study war the way most people think. He studied people. And what he saw wasn't men being destroyed by force, but by conversation. A single sentence, a single answer, given too early, to the wrong person, at the wrong time. That's all it takes to collapse leverage you didn't even know you had. Power doesn't disappear in chaos. It disappears in comfort. Here's the part most people will never accept. You were trained to answer. From the moment you could speak, you were rewarded for it. A question comes, you respond. Authority asks, you comply. Silence was treated like hesitation, like weakness. So you built a reflex. Answer first, think later. And that reflex became predictable. And predictable people are controllable. But here's the shift. Power doesn't start when you speak better. It starts when you stop answering automatically, when you realize that not every question deserves your truth, that the space between being asked and choosing to answer is where control actually lives. Right now, that space doesn't exist for most people. By the end of this, it will, and once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it, because the most dangerous questions don't sound dangerous. They sound like trust, like honesty, like respect, and that's exactly why they work. They don't force anything out of you. They make you hand it over willingly, and by the time you recognize the cost, it's already gone. I'm going to show you 5 questions. Simple on the surface, invisible in intent. And the 5th one is the root, the one that makes all the others possible. Miss it, and you stay exposed. See it, and everything changes. This is not self-help. This is surgery. Number 1. The retroactive permission trap. It doesn't come as a command. It doesn't come as pressure. It comes wrapped in politeness. Someone acts first, they cross a line, make a decision for you, spend your time, move your boundaries without asking. And only after it's done, they turn to you and say, asterisk, you don't mind, right? Asterisk. Or worse, asterisk. That's okay with you, isn't it? Asterisk. Stop. That was never a question. The decision is already made. The action is already executed. What you're being offered is not a choice, it's a script. And your role in that script is to confirm what has already happened, because the structure of the question is engineered for one answer. Agreement. Anything else costs you. Socially, emotionally, psychologically, you become difficult, overreacting, not easy to deal with. And most people would rather betray themselves than pay that price. So they nod, they smile, they say, yeah, it's fine. And in that moment, something irreversible happens. You didn't just accept the action, you validated the method. Machiavelli understood something most people still refuse to see. Appearances are more powerful than truth. It doesn't matter whether you were consulted. What matters is that at times looks like you were asterisk, and that one word times fine times becomes your signature, proof that you agreed, evidence that you approved, a contract you never read, but still signed. And once that signature exists, it gets used again, because the person asking just learned your pattern. They learned that they don't need your permission beforehand. They can act first and secure your compliance afterward. Cleaner, faster, more efficient. And next time, the violation won't be the same size. It will be slightly bigger, slightly bolder, slightly more expensive. Because every time you say, it's fine, You raise the ceiling of what they can take from you without resistance. This is how people lose control of their time, their boundaries, their position, one polite answer at a time. So when that question comes again, and it will, you don't play your assigned role. You don't soften it. You don't disguise your response to make it more comfortable. You simply break the pattern. Actually, I would have preferred if you asked me first. Short, clean, controlled. No emotion, no apology. And watch what happens. The dynamic shifts. Instantly. Because you just removed the illusion of consent, you force the interaction back into reality. Now they can't hide behind your agreement. Now they have to face the fact that they acted without it. And from that point forward, something changes. They stop informing you and start checking with you. Power doesn't return all at once. It returns the moment you stop giving it away automatically. But if you think this trap is subtle, the next one is worse. Because it doesn't come after the violation, it opens the door for it. Number 2, the honesty disguise. This one doesn't pressure you. It disarms you. Someone looks at you, lowers their tone just enough, and says, asterisk, can I be honest with you? Asterisk. And you already know your answer. Of course, you say it automatically, instinctively. Because saying no feels wrong. It feels defensive, weak, like you're afraid of the truth. So you agree before you even know what's coming. And that's the moment the frame locks in. Because now, whatever they say next is protected, shielded. Not by logic, but by language. They labeled it honesty. Which means if you react negatively, you're not disagreeing with them. You're rejecting truth itself. And no one wants to be seen as the person who can't handle honesty. So you sit there, you absorb it, even when it's not truth, even when it's projection, doubt, insecurity, subtle undermining dressed up as concern. I don't think you're ready for that. I'm not sure this is the right move for you, honestly. I expected more from you. Notice the pattern. It rarely builds you. It slows you down, plants hesitation, creates internal noise, and the person delivering it walks away untouched because they framed it as a virtue. Machiavelli understood this tactic centuries ago. The most effective manipulations are never presented as attacks. They arrive disguised as morality, as courage, as care. Because once something is framed as virtuous, opposing it makes you look like the problem. The strike lands, and you thank them for it. But here's what most people miss. Real honesty doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't need a preamble. It doesn't need you to lower your guard before it speaks. The people who genuinely have your best interest don't negotiate entry. They just tell you what needs to be said. Clean, direct, without theatrics. The question exists for one reason: to make sure you accept what's coming before you hear it. Remove that agreement, and the entire mechanism collapses. So the next time you hear it, you don't comply with the script. You shift the frame. Depends on what it is. Or even simpler, you can say it. I'll decide what I take from it. Watch the reaction. Hesitation, adjustment, sometimes silence. Because now their words stand on their own. No shield. No protection, just content. And suddenly, it doesn't feel like truth anymore. It feels exactly like what it always was, an opinion they didn't want challenged. And once you see that, you stop opening the door so easily. Because the next trap doesn't attack your confidence, it transfers something far heavier onto your shoulders. Number 3, the decision transfer. This one feels like respect. That's why most people never question it. Someone comes to you with a problem, a real one, a crossroads, something with consequences. They lay it out carefully, almost like they've been thinking about it for a while. And then they look at you and ask, asterisk, what would you do if you were me? Asterisk, and you feel it instantly, that subtle pull of importance, of being trusted, chosen, elevated above everyone else they could have asked. So you step in, you think it through, you analyze, you give them your best answer, and without realizing it, you just stepped into a position that was never yours to hold. Because the moment you give that answer, the weight shifts. It's no longer just their decision, it's partially yours. Machiavelli warned about this in a different form. Advice given without control is a liability. Because you influence the outcome, but you don't control the execution. And that gap, that distance between your words and their actions, is where things collapse. If it works, they take the credit. They made the call. They executed. They won. Your input disappears. But if it fails, your words become evidence. You told me to do this. You said this was the right move. Even if they never say it directly, you feel it. The shift, the blame, the quiet transfer of responsibility landing on your shoulders. And now you're carrying the consequences of a decision you never had the authority to make. That's the trap. And sometimes it's even more calculated than that, because not everyone asking is confused. Some already know what they're going to do. They've decided. But they want insulation. A second name attached to the outcome in case it goes wrong. A buffer, a fallback, a scapegoat. And when you answer that question, you volunteer for that role without even realizing you signed up. So you stop playing it, not by refusing to help, but by refusing to take ownership of what isn't yours. You redirect. What are you leaning toward? Or, it sounds like you already know what you want. Now the weight goes back where it belongs. You can still support, still listen, still guide the thinking process. But you never place your name on a decision someone else has to live with. Because once your name is on it, it never fully comes off. And that's the difference between being helpful and being held accountable for something you never controlled. But if you think carrying someone else's decision is dangerous, the next question turns you into something worse. A weapon used against someone who trusted you, without you even realizing it. Number 4, the source hunt. This one only appears when pressure rises, when you stop playing along, when you confront, when you bring something real to the surface, something they didn't expect you to know. You call it out. And instead of addressing what you said, they look at you and ask, asterisk, who told you that? Asterisk, watch what just happened. The conversation just shifted. Instantly. You were talking about their behavior, their action, their lie. Now suddenly, you're defending your source. Explaining how you found out. Justifying why you even know. The focus is gone. And if you answer that question, you've already lost. Because now you've done two things at once. First, you exposed someone who trusted you. Someone who gave you information believing you could handle it. You just broke that contract in seconds. Second, you handed your opponent a target. Because they don't care about the truth anymore. That was never the priority. The moment you give them a name, the objective changes. Now, it's about damage control. Cutting off the leak, discrediting the source, making sure that voice never reaches you again, and next time, you'll hear nothing. Machiavelli understood that information is power, but more importantly, the people who carry that information are rare. They are assets. And anyone who asks, asterisk, who told you? Asterisk is not searching for truth. They're identifying what needs to be eliminated, and you help them do it. All because the pressure to answer felt stronger than the discipline to hold frame. So you break that pattern. You don't explain. You don't justify. You don't redirect attention away from what matters. You anchor it. It doesn't matter how I found out. Is it true? Now the spotlight returns. Now they have nowhere to hide. Because without a name to chase, they're left alone with the accusation, with the reality they tried to escape. And most people are not prepared to sit in that space. That's where control flips. Because the moment you protect the source, you protect your access to truth. And the moment you refuse to be redirected, You become someone who can't be manipulated mid-conversation. But if you think protecting information is the final layer, the last question doesn't just redirect or transfer it, dismantles your ability to resist anything at all. Number 5, the master question. This is the one everything else depends on. It doesn't take your time. It doesn't take your words. It doesn't even take your decisions. It takes your ability to resist. Someone looks at you calm, confident, almost offended that you would ever doubt them and says, asterisk, you trust me, right? Asterisk. And your body reacts before your mind does, because saying no feels aggressive. It feels like an accusation, like you're the one breaking the connection, the suspicious one, the problem. So you rush to fix that tension. Of course I trust you. And the moment those words leave your mouth, the door is gone. Not opened, removed. Because now you're locked into a position you can't escape without contradicting yourself. Every future reaction is judged against that one sentence. Every doubt becomes hypocrisy. Every question becomes betrayal, and they know it. Machiavelli understood that the most effective control isn't forced, it's volunteered. And this question is the mechanism. It doesn't demand trust. It makes you declare it, publicly, clearly, in a way that can be used against you later. Because once you've said it, everything changes. When they cross a boundary and say, asterisk, you don't mind, right? Asterisk. You hesitate. You trusted them. When they preface an attack with, asterisk, can I be honest with you? Asterisk. You sit through it. You trusted them. When they ask for your advice and shift the weight onto you, you carry it. You trusted them. When they get exposed and demand, asterisk. Who told you that? Asterisk. You feel the pull. You trusted them. That one word times trust times becomes a leash, invisible, tight, and entirely self-inflicted. And here's the truth most people avoid. The ones who actually deserve your trust never ask for it. They don't need the word. Their behavior already proved it. Consistently, quietly, over time. Real trust doesn't show up as a question in a moment. It shows up as a pattern across years. So when someone asks you to declare it on command, it's not trust they want. It's immunity, a shield they can hold up every time their actions don't align, a shortcut past scrutiny, a way to bypass the one thing that protects you, the pause. So you remove the game entirely. You don't say yes. You don't say no. You say, I pay attention to what people do. And then you stop. Watch them. The ones who are real won't react. They don't need validation. They move on. But the ones who needed that yes, they press. They push. They get uncomfortable. Because without your declaration, they have nothing to stand on except their behavior. And deep down, they know that's not enough. That's why this is the root. Because every other trap in this entire system only works if you've already surrendered this first. And the moment you stop doing that, everything else starts to collapse. You think people are manipulating you. They're not. They're just using what you keep giving them. No one forced you to say yes. No one forced you to explain. No one forced you to hand over your trust, your time, your position. You did it. Automatically. Repeatedly. Predictably. And that's the part that should bother you, because it means the problem was never just them. It's the pattern inside you that keeps responding the same way, no matter who's asking. Different faces, same outcome, different conversations, same result. You give, they take, you adjust. They advance, not because they're smarter, because you're readable. Machiavelli never feared the strongest man in the room. He watched the most predictable one, the one who reacts the same way under the same pressure every single time. Because once a pattern is seen, it can be used. And you've had that pattern for years. You call it being polite, being understanding, being easy to work with. But strip away the labels, and it's something else. It's compliance, conditioned, reinforced, rewarded. You weren't taught to think before you answer. You were taught to answer fast, to avoid tension, to keep things smooth. And every time you did, people liked you more, trusted you more, came to you more. But not because you were strong, because you were accessible, easy to move, easy to influence, easy to predict. And over time, that became your role. The one who adjusts, the one who explains, the one who carries what others don't want to hold. And the longer you stay in that role, the harder it is to leave it. Because the moment you stop playing it, everything shifts. People pause, they notice, they test you, not aggressively, subtly. They ask the same questions again, waiting for the old version of you to respond. And when it doesn't happen, that's when the pressure starts. You've changed. You're overthinking. It's not that serious. No, it's exactly that serious. Because for the first time, you're not reacting, you're choosing. And that breaks the entire dynamic. Not everyone will like that version of you. Some will pull away. Some will get uncomfortable. Some will try harder to pull you back into the old pattern, because that's the version of you they understood how to use. That's the cost. Not losing people, losing access to the version of you they benefited from. And if that version disappears, so do they. Let that happen, because what you lose in comfort, you gain in control. And most people will never make that trade. This is where most people stop. They understand it. They nod. They feel that brief moment of clarity. And then they go right back to answering the same way they always have. Because awareness is easy. Discipline is not. Machiavelli never wrote for the masses. He wrote for the few who were willing to see what others refused to look at. The uncomfortable truth. The patterns beneath the surface. The game behind the conversation. And now you've seen it. You've seen how 5 simple questions can strip you of control without you ever noticing. How something that feels like connection can actually be extraction. How your own reflexes, your need to respond, to agree, to maintain comfort, became the very thing that made you easy to move. Most people will hear this and do nothing, because changing this requires something rare: restraint. The ability to sit in silence when a question is pulling something out of you. The ability to tolerate tension instead of dissolving it. The ability to let someone feel uncomfortable without rushing to fix it for them. That's where power lives. Not in what you say, in what you choose not to give. From this point forward, everything becomes simpler. Not easier, simpler. A question comes. You pause. You feel what it's asking for, and then you decide. Not based on habit, not based on pressure, not based on who's asking, based on whether it's earned. And that one shift changes your entire position in every room you walk into, because people can sense it. They sense when your yes is no longer automatic. They sense when your silence is intentional. They sense when access to you is no longer free. And when that happens, something inevitable follows. Respect. Not because you demanded it, because you stopped giving yourself away. So now the choice is yours. Go back to comfort. Keep answering. Keep smoothing things over. Keep being easy to handle. Or step into something quieter, but far more dangerous. Control. If this opened your eyes, don't just scroll past it like everything else. Write this in the comments. I choose when I answer. Subscribe if you haven't, because the next video goes deeper into something most people never even realize is happening to them. Most won't make it that far. That's the point. I'll see you in the dark.